Chapter 6. Love, the true emancipator of mankind. Love is man's greatest experience. It brings one into communication with infinite intelligence. When it is blended with the emotions of sex and romance, it may lead one to the higher mountain peaks of individual achievement through creative vision. The emotions of love, sex, and romance are the three sides of the eternal triangle of achievement known as genius. Nature creates geniuses through no other media. Love is an outward expression of the spiritual nature of man. Sex is purely biological, but it supplies the springs of action in all creative effort, from the humblest creature that crawls to the most profound of all creations, man. When love and sex are combined with the spirit of romance, the world may well rejoice, for these are the potentials of the great leaders who are the profound thinkers of the world. Love makes all mankind akin. It clears out selfishness, greed, jealousy, and envy, and makes right royal kings of the humblest of men. True greatness will never be found where love does not abide. The love of which I speak must not be confused with the emotions of sex. For love in its highest and purest expression is a combination of the eternal triangle, yet it is greater than any one of its three component parts. The love to which I refer is the elah vital, the life-giving factor, the spring of action of all the creative endeavors which have lifted mankind to his present state of refinement and culture. It is the one factor which draws a clear line of demarcation between man and all of the creatures of the earth below him. It is the one factor which determines for every man the amount of space he shall occupy in the hearts of his fellow men. Love is the solid foundation upon which the first of the 12 riches may be builded, a positive mental attitude, and let us take heed that no man may ever become truly rich without it. Love is the warp and the woof of all the remaining 11 riches. It embellishes all riches and gives them the quality of endurance, evidence of which may be revealed by cursory observation of all who have acquired material riches but have not acquired love. The habit of going the extra mile leads to the attainment of that spirit of love, for there can be no greater expression of love than love which is demonstrated through service that is rendered unselfishly for the benefit of others. Emerson had the vision of the kind of love to which I refer when he said, "Those who are capable of humility, of justice, of love, of aspiration, are already on the platform that commands the sciences and arts, speech and poetry, action and grace. For whoso dwells in this mortal beatitude does already anticipate those special powers which men prize so highly." The magnanimous know very well that they who give time, or money, or shelter, to the stranger so it be done for love, and not for ostentation, do, as it were, put God under obligation to them, so perfect are the compensations of the universe. In some way the time they seem to lose, is redeemed, and the pains they take, remunerate themselves. These men fan the flame of human love and raise the standard of civic virtue among mankind. The great minds of every age have recognized love as the eternal elixir that binds the heart wounds of mankind and makes men their brothers keepers. One of the greatest minds this nation ever produced expressed his views on love in a classic that shall live as long as time endures. He said, "Love is the only bow on life's dark cloud. It is the morning and the evening star. It shines upon the babe, and sheds its radiance on the quiet tomb. It is the mother of art, inspirer of poet, patriot, and philosopher. It is the air and light of every heart, builder of every home, kindler of every fire on every hearth. It was the first to dream of immortality. It fills the world with melody, for music is the voice of love. Love is the magician, the enchanter, that changes worthless things to joy, and makes right royal kings and queens of common clay. It is the perfume of that wondrous flower, the heart, and without that sacred passion, that divine swoon, we are less than beasts, but with it, earth is heaven and we are gods. Love is transfiguration. It ennobles, purifies, and glorifies. Love is a revelation, a creation. From love the world borrows its beauty and the heavens their glory. Justice, self-denial, charity and pity are the children of love. Without love all glory fades, the noble falls from life, art dies. Music loses meaning and becomes mere motions of the air, and virtue ceases to exist. If a man is truly great, he will love all mankind. He will love the good and the bad among all humanity. The good he will love with pride and admiration and joy. The bad he will love with pity and sorrow, for he will know, if he be truly great, that both good and bad qualities in man often are but the results of circumstances over which they have, because of their ignorance, little control. If a man be truly great, he will be compassionate, sympathetic and tolerant. When he is compelled to pass judgment upon others, he will temper justice with tender mercy, throwing himself always on the side of the weak, the uninformed and the poverty-stricken. Thus he will not only go the extra mile in a true spirit of fellowship, but he will go willingly and graciously. And if the second mile be not enough, he will go the third and the fourth, and as many additional miles as may be necessary. Some who have benefited by the habit of going the extra mile. No one ever does anything voluntarily without a motive. Let us see if we can reveal a sound motive that will justify the habit of going the extra mile by observing a few who have been inspired by it. Many years ago, an elderly lady was strolling through a Pittsburgh department store, obviously killing time. She passed counter after counter, without anyone paying any attention to her. All of the clerks had spotted her as an idle looker who had no intention of buying. They made it a point of looking in another direction when she stopped at their counters. What costly business this neglect turned out to be. Finally, the lady came to a counter that was attended by a young clerk, who bowed politely and asked if he might serve her. "No," she replied, "I am just killing time, waiting for the rain to stop so I can go home." "Very well, madam," the young man smiled, "may I bring out a chair for you?" And he brought it without waiting for her answer. After the rain slacked, the young man took the old lady by the arm, escorted her to the street and bade her goodbye. As she left, she asked him for his card. Several months later, the owner of the store received a letter, asking that this young man be sent to Scotland to take an order for the furnishings of a home. The owner of the store wrote back that he was sorry, but the young man did not work in the house furnishings department. However, he explained that he would be glad to send an experienced man to do the job. Back came a reply that no one would do except this particular young man. The letters were signed by Andrew Carnegie, and the house he wanted furnished was Skibo Castle in Scotland. The elderly lady was M.R. Carnegie's mother. The young man was sent to Scotland. He received an order for several $100,000 worth of household furnishings, and with it a partnership in the store. He later became the owner of a half interest in the store. Verily, it pays to go the extra mile. Some years ago, the editor of the Golden Rule magazine was invited to deliver a speech at the Palmer School in Davenport, Iowa. He accepted the invitation on his regular fee basis, which was $100 and traveling expenses. While the editor was at the college, he picked up enough editorial material for several stories for his magazine. After he had delivered the speech and was ready to return to Chicago, he was told to turn in his expense account and receive his check. He refused to accept any money for either his address or his expenses, explaining that he had already been paid adequately by the material he had procured for his magazine. He took the train back to Chicago feeling well repaid for his trip. The following week, he began to receive from Davenport many subscriptions to his magazine. By the end of the week, he had received over $6,000 in cash subscriptions. Then followed a letter from Dr. Palmer, explaining that the subscriptions had come from his students, who had been told of the editor's refusal to accept money which he had been promised, and which he had earned. During the following 2 years, the students and the graduates of the Palmer School sent in more than $50,000 in subscriptions to the Golden Rule magazine. The story was so impressive that it was written up in a magazine that had a circulation throughout the English-speaking world, and the subscriptions came from many different countries. Thus, by rendering $100 worth of service without collecting, the editor had started the law of increasing returns to work in his behalf, and it yielded him a return of over 500 times his investment. The habit of going the extra mile is no pipe dream. It pays, and pays handsomely. Moreover, it never forgets. Like other types of investments, the habit of going the extra mile often yields dividends throughout one's Lifetime. Let us look at what happened when one neglected an opportunity to go the extra mile. Late one rainy afternoon, an automobile salesman sat at his desk in the showroom of the New York branch of an expensive automobile. The door opened and in walked a man jauntily swinging a cane. The salesman looked up from the reading of the afternoon paper, took a swift glance at the newcomer, and immediately spotted him as another of those Broadway window shoppers who do nothing but waste one's valuable time. He went ahead with his newspaper, not taking the trouble to rise from his chair. The man with the cane walked through the showroom, looking first at one car and then another. Finally he walked over to where the salesman was sitting, teetered on his cane, and nonchalantly asked the price of 3 different automobiles on the floor. Without looking up from his newspaper, the salesman gave the prices and went on with his reading. The man with the cane walked back over to the 3 automobiles at which he had been looking, kicked the tires of each one, then returned to the busy man at the desk and said, "Well, I hardly know whether I shall take this one, that one, the other one over there, or whether I shall buy all 3. The busy man at the desk responded with a sort of smirky, wiseacre smile, as much as to say, "Just as I thought." Then the man with the cane said, "Oh, I guess I will buy one of them. Send that one with the yellow wheels up to my house tomorrow. And, by the way, how much did you say it was?" He took out his checkbook, wrote out a check, handed it to the salesman, and walked out. When the salesman saw the name on the check, he turned 14 different shades of pink and almost swooned from heart failure. The man who signed the check was Harry Payne Whitney, and the salesman knew that if he had only taken the time to get up from his chair he might have sold all 3 automobiles without any effort. Withholding anything short of the best service of which one is capable is costly business, a fact which many have learned too late. The right of personal initiative is not worth much to the fellow who is too indifferent or too lazy to exercise it. Many people are in this class without recognizing the reason they never accumulate riches. Over 40 years ago, a young salesman in a hardware store observed that the store had a lot of odds and ends which were out of date and not selling. Having time on his hands, he rigged up a special table in the middle of the store. He loaded it with some of this unsaleable merchandise, marking it at the bargain price of a diamond article. To his surprise and that of the owner of the store, the gadgets sold like hotcakes. Out of that experience grew the great F.W. Woolworth 5 and 10 cent chain store system. The young man who stumbled upon the idea by going the extra mile was Frank W. Woolworth. That idea yielded him a fortune estimated at more than $50 million. Moreover, the same idea made several other persons rich, and applications of the idea are at the heart of many of the more profitable merchandising systems in America. No one told young Woolworth to exercise his right to personal initiative. No one paid him for doing so, yet his action led to ever-increasing returns for his efforts. Once he put the idea into practice, increasing returns nearly ran him down. There is something about this habit of doing more than one is paid for, which works in one's behalf even while he sleeps. Once it begins to work, it piles up riches so fast that it seems like queer magic which, like Aladdin's lamp, draws to one's aid an army of genii which come laden with bags of gold. Some 30-odd years ago, a young newspaper reporter was sent to interview Andrew Carnegie for the purpose of writing a story about his stupendous achievements in the industrial world. During the interview, Mr. Carnegie let drop a hint that if the reporter had the vision to go the extra mile to the tune of about 20 years of unprofitable labor, he might do a job that would make him richer by far than the great steel master. The reporter accepted that challenge and went to work. After 20 years of unprofitable labor, almost to the day, the reporter gave the world the net results of what he had learned about Andrew Carnegie's methods of accumulating riches, as well as what he had learned of the methods of some 500 other successful men who had accumulated great riches by the simple expedient of going the extra mile. Today that information is being circulated in practically every English-speaking country of the world, where it is serving many millions of people who wish to learn the secret of achievement through the exercise of personal initiative. It has been translated into many foreign languages. It is designed to help those who are not afraid of doing more than they are paid for and who wish to convert their share of American opportunity into some form of riches. The compensation this former newspaper reporter is now receiving for his 20 years of unprofitable labor affords him riches sufficient for all his needs. Among the greatest of these are peace of mind, priceless friendships throughout the world, and that form of enduring happiness, which is the lot of every man who has found his work, likes it, and is busily engaged in performing it. Some 30 years ago Charles M. Schwab's private railroad car was switched onto the siding at his steel plant in Pennsylvania. It was a cold, frosty morning. As he alighted from the car he was met by a young man with a stenographer's notebook in his hands who hurriedly explained that he was a stenographer in the general office of the steel company, and that he had come down to meet the car to see if Mr. Schwab needed any letters written, or any telegrams sent. "Who asked you to meet me?" Mr. Schwab queried. "No one," the young man replied. "I saw the telegram coming through announcing your arrival. So I came down to meet you, hoping I might be of some service." Think of that. He came down hoping he might be able to find something to do for which he was not paid. And he came on his own initiative without being told. Mr. Schwab thanked him politely for his thoughtfulness, but said he had no need for a stenographer at the moment. After carefully noting the young man's name, he sent the lad back to his work. That night, when the private car was hitched to the night train for its return to New York City, it carried the young stenographer. He had been assigned, at Mr. Schwab's request, for service in New York as one of the steel magnate's assistants. The lad's name was Williams. He remained in Mr. Schwab's services for several years, during which opportunity after opportunity for promotion came to him unsolicited. It is peculiar how opportunities have a way of trailing the people who make it their business to go the extra mile, but they do very definitely. Finally an opportunity came to young Williams which he could not ignore. He was made president and a large stockholder in one of the largest drug concerns in the United States, a job which yielded him a fortune far greater than his needs. This incident is clear evidence of what can happen, and of what has been happening all down through the years under the American way of life. The habit of going the extra mile is one that does not confine its rewards to wage earners. It works as well for an employer as it does for an employee, as one merchant whom we knew quite well gratefully testified. His name was Arthur Nash. His business was merchant tailoring. Some years ago Mr. Nash found his business just one step ahead of the sheriff. The First World War and other conditions over which he seemed to have no control had brought him to the brink of financial ruin. One of his most serious handicaps was that his employees had caught his spirit of defeatism, and they expressed it in their work by slowing down and becoming disgruntled. His situation became desperate. Something had to be done, and it had to be done quickly if he were to continue in business. Out of sheer desperation he called his employees together and told them the condition. While he was speaking, an idea occurred to him. He said he had been reading a story in the Golden Rule magazine which told how its editor had gone the extra mile by rendering service for which he refused to accept pay, only to be voluntarily rewarded with more than $6,000 worth of subscriptions to his magazine. He wound up by suggesting that if he and all of his employees caught that spirit and began to go the extra mile, they might save the business. He promised his employees that if they would join with him in an experiment he would endeavor to carry on the business, with the understanding that everyone would forget wages, forget working hours, pitch in and do his best, and take chances on receiving pay for work. If the business could be made to pay, every employee would receive back wages, with a bonus thrown in for good measure. The employees liked the idea and agreed to give it a trial. The next day, they began to come in with their meager savings, which they voluntarily loaned to Mr. Nash. Everyone went to work with a new spirit, and the business began to show signs of new life. Very soon it was back on a paying basis. Then it began to prosper as it had never prospered before. 10 years later the business had made Mr. Nash rich. The employees were more prosperous than they had ever been, and everyone was happy. Arthur Nash passed on, but today the business continues as one of the more successful merchant tailoring businesses of America. The employees took over the business when Mr. Nash laid it down. Ask any one of them what he thinks of this business of going the extra mile, and you will get the answer. Moreover, talk with one of the Nash salesmen, wherever you meet one, and observe his spirit of enthusiasm and his self-reliance. When this extra mile stimulant once gets into a man's mind, he becomes a different sort of person. The outlook on the world appears different to him, and he appears different because he is different. Here is the appropriate place to remind you of an important thing about the habit of going the extra mile by doing more than one is paid for. It is the strange influence which it has on the man who does it. The greatest benefit from this habit does not come to those to whom the service is rendered. It comes to the one who renders the service, in the form of a changed mental attitude, which gives him more influence with other people, more self-reliance, greater initiative, more enthusiasm, more vision, and definiteness of purpose. All of these are qualities of successful achievement. Do the thing and you shall have the power, said Emerson. Ah yes, the power. What can a man do in our world without power? But it must be the type of power which attracts other people instead of repelling them. It must be a form of power which gains momentum from the law of increasing returns, through the operation of which one's acts and deeds come back to him greatly multiplied. You who work for wages should learn more about this sowing and reaping business. Then you would understand why no man can go on forever sowing the seed of inadequate service and reaping a harvest of full-grown pay. You would know that there must come a halt to the habit of demanding a full day's pay for a poor day's work. And you who do not work for wages, but who wish to get more of the better things of life, let us have a word with you. Why do you not become wise and start getting what you wish the easy and sure way? Yes, there is an easy and a sure way to promote one's self into whatever he wants from life. And its secret becomes known to every person who makes it his business to go the extra mile. The secret can be uncovered in no other manner, for it is wrapped up in that extra mile. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is not a mere fairy tale. The end of that extra mile is the spot where the rainbow ends, and that is where the pot of gold is hidden. Few people ever catch up with the end of the rainbow. When one gets to where he thought the rainbow ended, he finds it is still far in the distance. The trouble with most of us is that we do not know how to follow rainbows. Those who know the secret know that the end of the rainbow can be reached only by going the extra mile. Late one afternoon, some 25 years ago, William C. Durant, the founder of General Motors, walked into his bank after banking hours, and asked for some favor which in the ordinary course of business should have been requested during banking hours. The man who granted the favor was Carroll Downs, an under official of the bank. He not only served Mr. Durant with efficiency, but he went the extra mile and added courtesy to the service. He made Mr. Durant feel that it was a real pleasure to serve him. The incident seemed trivial, and of itself it was of little importance. Unknown to Mr. Downs, this courtesy was destined to have repercussions of a far-reaching nature. The next day Mr. Durant asked Downs to come to his office. That visit led to the offer of a position which Downs accepted. He was given a desk in a general office where nearly 100 other people worked, and he was notified that the office hours were from 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. His salary to begin with was modest. At the end of the first day, when the gong rang announcing the close of the day's work, Downs noticed that everyone grabbed his hat and coat and made a rush for the door. He sat still, waiting for the others to leave the office. After they had gone, he remained at his desk, pondering in his own mind the cause of the great haste everyone had shown to get away on the very second of quitting time. 15 minutes later Mr. Durant opened the door of his private office, saw Downs still at his desk, and asked Downs whether he understood that he was privileged to stop work at 5:30. "Oh yes," Downs replied, "but I did not wish to be run over in the rush." Then he asked if he could be of any service to Mr. Durant. He was told he might find a pencil for the motor magnate. He got the pencil, ran it through the pencil sharpener and took it to Mr. Durant. Mr. Durant thanked him and said good night. The next day at quitting time Downs remained at his desk again after the Rush was over. This time he waited with purpose for a thought. In a little while Mr. Durant came out of his private office and asked again if Downs did not understand that 5:30 was the time for closing. Yes, Downs smiled, I understand it is quitting time for the others, but I have heard no one say that I have to leave the office when the day is officially closed, so I chose to remain here with the hope that I might be of some slight service to you. What an unusual hope, Durant exclaimed. Where did you get the idea? I got it from the scene I witness here at closing time every day, Downs replied. Mr. Durant grunted some reply which Downs did not hear distinctly and returned to his office. From then on Downs always remained at his desk after closing time, until he saw Mr. Durant leave for the day. He was not paid to remain over time. No one told him to do it. No one promised him anything for remaining, and as far as the casual observer might know, he was wasting his time. Several months later Downs was called into Mr. Durant's office and informed that he had been chosen to go out to a new plant that had been purchased recently to supervise the installation of the plant machinery. Imagine that. A former bank official becoming a machinery expert in a few months. Without quibbling, Downs accepted the assignment and went on his way. He did not say, "Why, Mr. Durant, I know nothing about the installation of machinery." He did not say, "That's not my job," or "I'm not paid to install machinery." No, he went to work and did what was requested of him. Moreover, he went at the job with a pleasant, mental attitude. 3 months later the job was completed. It was done so well that Mr. Durant called Downs into his office and asked him where he learned about machinery. "Oh," Downs explained, "I never learned, Mr. Durant. I merely looked around, found men who knew how to get the job done, put them to work, and they did it." "Splendid!" Mr. Durant exclaimed. "There are 2 types of men who are valuable. One is the fellow who can do something and do it well, without complaining that he is being overworked. The other is the fellow who can get other people to do things well, without complaining. You are both types wrapped into one package." Downs thanked him for the compliment and turned to go. "Wait a moment," Durant requested. "I forgot to tell you that you are the new manager of the plant you have installed, and your salary to start with is $50,000 a year." The following 10 years of association with Mr. Durant was worth between $10 and $12 million to Carroll Downs. He became an intimate advisor of the Motor King and made himself rich as a result. The main trouble with so many of us is that we see men who have arrived and we weigh them in the hour of their triumph without taking the trouble to find out how or why they arrived. There is nothing very dramatic about the story of Carroll Downs. The incidents mentioned occurred during the day's business, without even a passing notice by the average person who worked along with Downs. And we doubt not that many of these fellow workers envied him because they believed he had been favored by Mr. Durant, through some sort of pull or luck, or whatever it is that men who do not succeed use as an excuse to explain their own lack of progress. Well, to be candid, Downs did have an inside pull with Mr. Durant. He created that pull on his own initiative. He created it by going the extra mile in a matter as trivial as that of placing a neat point on a pencil when nothing was requested except a plain pencil. He created it by remaining at his desk with the hope that he might be of service to his employer after the rush was over at 5:30 each evening. He created it by using his right of personal initiative by finding men who understood how to install machinery instead of asking Durant where or how to find such men. Trace down these incidents step by step and you will find that Downs' success was due solely to his own initiative. Moreover, the story consists of a series of little tasks well performed, in the right mental attitude. Perhaps there were 100 other men working for Mr. Durant who could have done as well as Downs, but the trouble with them was that they were searching for the end of the rainbow by running away from it in the 5:30 rush each afternoon. Long years afterward a friend asked Carroll Downs how he got his opportunity with Mr. Durant. "Oh," he modestly replied, "I just made it my business to get in his way, so he could see me. When he looked around, wanting some little service, he called on me because I was the only one in sight. In time he got into the habit of calling on me. There you have it. Mr. Durant got into the habit of calling on Downs. Moreover, he found that Downs could and would assume responsibilities by going the extra mile. What a pity that all of the American people do not catch something of this spirit of assuming greater responsibilities. What a pity that more of us do not begin speaking more of our privileges under the American way of life, and less of the lack of opportunities in America. Is there a man living in America today who would seriously claim that Carol Downs would have been better off if he had been forced, by law, to join the Medrush and quit his work at 5:30 in the afternoon? If he had done so, he would have received the standard wages for the sort of work he performed, but nothing more. Why should he have received more? His destiny was in his own hands. It was wrapped up in this one lone privilege, which should be the privilege of every American citizen, the right of personal initiative, through the exercise of which he made it a habit always to go the extra mile. That tells the whole story. There is no other secret to Downs' success. He admits it, and everyone familiar with the circumstances of his promotion from poverty to riches knows it. There is one thing no one seems to know: why are there so few men who, like Carol Downs, discover the power implicit in doing more than one is paid for? It has in it the seed of all great achievement. It is the secret of all noteworthy success, and yet it is so little understood that most people look upon it as some clever trick with which employers try to get more work out of their employees. This spirit of indifference toward the habit of going the extra mile was dramatically expressed by a wiseacre, who once applied to Henry Ford for a job. Mr. Ford questioned the man about his experience, his habits, and other routine matters, and was satisfied with the replies. Then he asked, "How much money do you want for your services?" The man was evasive on this point, so Mr. Ford finally said, "Well, suppose you start in and show us what you can do, and we will pay you all you are worth after we have tried you out." Mr. Wiseacre exclaimed, "I'm getting more than that where I am now employed." And we doubt not that he told the truth. That explains precisely why so many people do not get ahead in life. They are getting more than they are worth where they are, and they never learn how to get ahead by becoming worth more. Just after the end of the Spanish-American War, Elbert Hubbard wrote a story entitled A Message to Garcia. He told briefly how President William McKinley commissioned a young soldier by the name of Rowan to carry a message from the United States government to Garcia, the rebel chieftain, whose exact whereabouts were not known. The young soldier took the message, made his way through the fastnesses of the Cuban jungle, finally found Garcia, and delivered the note to him. That was all there was to the story, just a private soldier carrying out his orders under difficulties, and getting the job done without coming back with an excuse. The story fired imaginations and spread all over the world. The simple act of a man doing what he was told, and doing it well, became news of the first magnitude. A Message to Garcia was printed in booklet form, and the sales reached an all-time high for such publications, amounting to more than 10 million copies. This one story made Elbert Hubbard famous, to say nothing of helping to make him rich. The story was translated into several foreign languages. The Japanese government had it printed and distributed to every Japanese soldier during the Japanese-Russian War. The Pennsylvania Railroad Company presented a copy of it to each of their thousands of employees. The big life insurance companies of America presented it to their salesmen. Long after Elbert Hubbard went down on the ill-fated Lusitania in 1915, A Message to Garcia continued as a bestseller throughout America. The story was popular because it had in it something of the magic power that belongs to the man who does something, and does it well. The whole world is clamoring for such men. They are needed and wanted in every walk of life. American industry has always had princely berths for men who can and will assume responsibilities and who get the job done in the right mental attitude, by going the extra mile. Andrew Carnegie lifted no fewer than 40 such men from the lowly station of day laborers to millionaires. He understood the value of men who were willing to go the extra mile. Wherever he found such a man, he brought his find into the inner circle of his business and gave him an opportunity to earn all he was worth. Charles M. Schwab was one of those who gained the favor of the steel master by the simple expedient of going the extra mile. He began work with Carnegie in the humble capacity of a stake driver at day wages. But step by step he climbed to the top and became Carnegie's right-hand man, with the result that some years his income amounted to more than $1 million in the form of a bonus. People do things or refrain from doing them because of a motive. The soundest of motives for the habit of going the extra mile is the fact that it yields enduring dividends, in ways too numerous to mention, to all who follow the habit. No one has ever been known to achieve permanent success without doing more than he was paid for. The practice has its counterpart in the laws of nature. It has back of it an impressive array of evidence as to its soundness, supplied by those who have made it a practice of going the extra mile. It is based on common sense and justice. The best of all methods of testing the soundness of this principle is that of putting it to work as a part of one's daily habits. Some truths we can learn only through our own experience. Americans want greater individual shares of the vast resources of this country. That is a healthy desire. The wealth is here in abundance, but let us stop this foolish attempt to get it the wrong way. Let us get our wealth by giving something of value in return for it. That is how Andrew Carnegie, Thomas A. Edison, Henry Ford, and many others of their type have acquired their wealth. We know the rules by which success is attained. Let us appropriate these rules and use them intelligently, thereby acquiring the personal riches we demand, and adding to the wealth of the nation as well. Some will say, I am already doing more than I am paid for, but my employer is so selfish and greedy he will not recognize the sort of service I am rendering. We all know there are greedy men who desire more service than that for which they are willing to pay. Selfish employers are like pieces of clay in the hands of a potter. Through their greed they can be induced to reward the man who renders them more service than he is paid to render. Greedy employers do not wish to lose the services of one who makes a habit of going the extra mile. They know the value of such employees. Here, then, is the crowbar and the fulcrum with which employers can be pried loose from their greed. Any clever man will know how to use this crowbar, not by withholding the quality or quantity of service he renders, but by increasing it. The clever salesman of his personal services can manipulate a greedy purchaser of his services as easily as a smart woman can influence the man of her choice. The effective technique is similar to that used by clever women in managing men. The clever man will make it his business to become indispensable to a greedy employer by doing more work and better work than any other employee. Greedy employers will give their eye teeth before parting with such a man. Thus the alleged greed of employers becomes a great asset to the man who follows the habit of going the extra mile. We have seen this technique applied at least 100 times as a means of manipulating greedy employers through the use of their own weakness. Not once have we seen it fail to work. On some occasions the greedy employer failed to move as quickly as expected, but that proved to be his hard luck, because his employee attracted the attention of a competitive employer who made a bid for the services of the employee and secured them. There is no way to cheat the man who follows the habit of going the extra mile. If he does not get proper recognition from one source, it comes voluntarily from some other source, usually when it is least expected. It always comes if a man does more than he is paid for. The man who goes the extra mile and does it in the right kind of mental attitude never spends time looking for a job. He does not have to, for the job is always looking for him. Depressions may come and go. Business may be good or poor, the country may be at war or at peace, but the man who renders more service and better service than he is paid for becomes indispensable to someone and thereby insures himself against unemployment. High wages and indispensability are twin sisters. They always have been, and always will be. The man who is smart enough to make himself indispensable is smart enough to keep himself continuously employed, and at wages which not even the most greedy labor leader would ask. Henry Ford understands the value of indispensability. He also knows the value of going the extra mile. That is why 30 years ago he voluntarily raised the wages of his workers to an all-time high minimum daily wage. By that act he did for his employees something that no one forced him to do, and it was a wise move because it insured him against labor troubles for more than a quarter of a century. Andrew Carnegie understood the value of going the extra mile. By putting that rule to work, he piled up a fortune of more than $500 million. By some he was accused of being greedy, but he was never accused of being weak in the management of men. If he were greedy, he made wise use of his deficiency by paying some of his men, those who had the good judgment to make themselves indispensable to him by going the extra mile, as much as $1 million a year in bonuses. His policy was to encourage men to become indispensable to him by doing more than they were paid for, a privilege that was always available to his humblest worker, and then insuring himself against their becoming his rivals in business by paying them all or more than they were actually worth. We do not know what others may think of this principle of doing more than one is paid for, but as for ourselves, we prefer to go along with such men as Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie, and emulate them instead of criticizing them. By their recognition of the principle of going the extra mile, these two men added many billions of dollars of additional wealth to the nation, provided profitable employment to many millions of men, and piled up huge fortunes for their own use. Who among us could have done better? Who among us has a better plan than theirs? No, most of us are not as smart as were Henry Ford and Andrew Carnegie. Instead of emulating their examples and making it our business to go the extra mile, most of us, when asked to do something for which we are not paid, display our brand of wisdom by saying, "I am not paid to do that." Thus do we brand ourselves for what we are. Time, the great interpreter which stands on the sidelines of life and brands us at our worth, writes "poor fool" across our foreheads as we march on, while the Henry Fords and the Andrew Carnegies step out of the line, set their own price tag on themselves, and find their fellow men ready to pay any price they demand for their services. Most men spend their lives searching for the breaks, waiting for opportunities to overtake them, depending upon luck to provide them with their needs, but never come within sight of their goal because they have no definite goal. Therefore they have no motive to inspire them to form the habit of going the extra mile. They never recognize the worldly hope men set their hearts upon turns ashes or it prospers, and anon, like snow upon the desert's dusty face, lighting a little hour or two is gone. Their haste becomes waste. For they go round and round, like goldfish in a bowl, coming back always to the place from whence they started. Coming back empty-handed and disappointed. Riches may be attained by appointment only, by the choice of a definite goal and a definite plan for attaining it, also by the selection of a definite starting point from which to take off. But, let no one make the mistake of assuming that the habit of going the extra mile pays off only in terms of material riches. The habit definitely helps one to tap the source of spiritual riches, and to draw upon that source for every human need. The revealing story of Edward Choate. Some men who are smart, and others who are wise, have discovered the way to riches by the deliberate application of the principle of going the extra mile for pecuniary gain. However, those who are truly wise recognize that the greatest payoff through this principle comes in terms of friendships which endure throughout life, in harmonious human relationships, in a labor of love, in the capacity to understand people, in a willingness to share one's blessings with others, all of which are among the 12 riches of life. Edward Choate is one who has recognized this truth and has found the master key to riches. His home is in Los Angeles, California, and his business is that of selling life insurance. At the outset of his career as a life insurance salesman, he made a modest living from his efforts, but he broke no records in that field. Through an unfortunate business venture, he lost all of his money and found himself at the bottom of the ladder, and was forced to make a new start. I said, an unfortunate business venture, but perhaps I should have said a fortunate business venture, for his loss influenced him to stop, look, listen, think, and to meditate concerning the fates of men which seem to lift some to high places of achievement but condemn others to temporary defeat or permanent failure. Through his meditations he became a student of the philosophy of individual achievement which Andrew Carnegie helped to provide through his colorful career. When Mr. Choate reached the lesson on going the extra mile, he was awakened by a keen sense of understanding he had never before experienced, and he recognized that the loss of material riches may lead one to the source of greater riches, consisting of one's spiritual forces. With this discovery, Mr. Choate began to appropriate, one by one, the 12 riches of life, beginning at the head of the list by the development of positive mental attitude. For the time being he ceased to think about the amount of life insurance he might sell, and began to look around for opportunities to be of service to others who were burdened with problems they could not solve. His first opportunity came when he discovered a young man out in the deserts of California who had failed in a mining venture and was facing starvation. He took the young man into his home, fed him, encouraged him, and kept him in his home until he found a good position for him. In thus casting himself for the role of the Good Samaritan, Mr. Choate had no thought of pecuniary gain, for it was obvious that a poverty-stricken, broken-spirited boy might never become a prospective purchaser of life insurance. Then other opportunities to help the less fortunate began to reveal themselves so rapidly that it seemed as if Mr. Choate had made of himself a magnet which attracted only those with difficult problems to be solved. But the appearance was deceiving, for he was only passing through a testing period by which he might demonstrate his sincerity of purpose in helping others. A period, let us not forget, which everyone who applies the principle of going the extra mile must experience in one way or another. Then the scene shifted, and the affairs of Edward Choate began to take a turn he probably had not expected. His life insurance sales began to mount higher and higher, until at last they had reached an all-time high level. And, miracle of miracles, one of the largest policies he had ever written up to that time was sold to the employer of the young man of the desert whom he had befriended. The sale was made without Mr. Choate's solicitation. Other sales began to come his way in the same manner, until he was actually selling more insurance, without any strenuous effort, than he had ever sold previously by the hardest kind of labor. Moreover, he had tapped a field of life insurance salesmanship in which the policies he sold were of large amounts. Men of great responsibilities and extensive financial affairs began to send for him to counsel them in connection with their life insurance problems. His business grew until it brought him that goal which is so greatly coveted by all life insurance men: life membership in the $1 Million Round Table. Such a distinction is attained only by those who sell a minimum of $1 million a year in insurance for 3 consecutive years. There had been only 57 men to reach this outstanding achievement during the 26-year period prior to 1943, when this information was revealed. So, in seeking spiritual riches, Edward Choate also found material riches. Found them in greater abundance than he had ever anticipated. 6 brief years after he had begun to cast himself for the role of the Good Samaritan, Mr. Choate wrote more than $2 million of life insurance during the first 4 months of the year. The story of his achievements began to spread throughout the nation. It brought him invitations to speak before life insurance conventions, for other life insurance salesmen desired to know how he had managed to lift himself to so enviable a position in that profession. He told them, and quite contrary to the usual practice among men who have attained success in the upper brackets of achievement, he revealed the humility of heart by which he is inspired, frankly admitting that his achievements were the result of the application of the philosophy of others. The average man who is successful has a tendency to try to convey the impression that his success is due to his own smartness or wisdom, but very seldom does he frankly give credit to his benefactors. What a pity there are not more Edward Choates in the world. For it is obvious to all who think accurately that no man ever attains a high degree of enduring success without the friendly cooperation of others. Nor does any man ever attain enduring success without helping others. Edward Choate is as rich in material values as he needs to be. He is far richer in spiritual values, for he has discovered, appropriated, and made. Chapter 7. The Mastermind. Definition: an alliance of 2 or more minds, blended in a spirit of perfect harmony and cooperating for the attainment of a definite purpose. Note well the definition of this principle, for it carries a meaning which provides the key to the attainment of great personal power. The mastermind principle is the basis of all great achievements, the foundation stone of major importance in all human progress, whether it be individual progress or collective progress. The key to its power may be found in the word harmony. Without that element, collective effort may constitute cooperation, but it will lack the power which harmony provides through coordination of effort. The tenets of major importance in connection with the mastermind principle are these. Premise 1. The mastermind principle is the medium through which one may procure the full benefit of the experience, training, education, specialized knowledge and native ability of others, just as completely as if their minds were one's own. Premise 2. An alliance of two or more minds, in a spirit of perfect harmony for the attainment of a definite purpose, stimulates each individual mind with a high degree of inspiration, and may become that state of mind known as faith. A slight idea of this stimulation and its power is experienced in the relationship of close friendship and in the relationship of love. Premise 3. Every human brain is both a broadcasting station and a receiving station for the expression of the vibrations of thought, and the stimulating effect of the mastermind principle stimulates action of thought, through what is commonly known as telepathy, operating through the sixth sense. In this manner many business and professional alliances are translated into reality, and seldom has anyone ever attained a high station or enduring power without the application of the mastermind principle through which he secured the benefit of other minds. This fact alone is sufficient evidence of the soundness and the importance of the mastermind principle, and it is a fact which anyone may observe without straining his powers of observation or overtaxing his credulity. Premise 4. The mastermind principle, when actively applied, has the effect of connecting one with the subconscious section of the mind, and the subconscious sections of the minds of his allies, a fact which may explain many of the seemingly miraculous results obtained through the master mind. Premise 5. The more important human relationships in connection with which one may apply beneficially the mastermind principle are these. A. In marriage. B. In religion. C. In connection with one's occupation, profession, or calling. The mastermind principle made it possible for Thomas A. Edison to become a great inventor despite his lack of education and his lack of knowledge of the sciences with which he had to work, a circumstance which offers hope to all who erroneously believe themselves to be seriously handicapped by the lack of a formal education. With the aid of the mastermind principle one may understand the history and the structure of this earth on which we live through the knowledge of skilled geologists. Through the knowledge and experience of the chemist one may make practical use of chemistry without being a trained chemist. With the aid of scientists, technicians, physicists, and practical mechanics, one may become a successful inventor without personal training in any of these fields, as did Mr. Edison. There are two general types of mastermind alliances, viz. 1. Alliance, for purely social or personal reasons, with one's relatives, religious advisors and friends, where no material gain or objective is sought. The most important of this type of alliance is that of man and wife. 2. Alliances for business, professional and economic advancement, consisting of individuals who have a personal motive in connection with the object of the alliance. Now let us consider some of the more important examples of power that have been attained by the application of the mastermind. The American form of government, as it was originally written into the Constitution of the United States, should have first analysis because it is one form of power which vitally affects every citizen of our country, and to a large degree affects the entire world. Our country is noted for three obvious facts. 1. It is the richest country of the world. 2. It is the most powerful nation of the world. 3. It provides its citizens with more personal freedom than does any other nation. Riches, freedom, and power. What an awe-inspiring combination of realities. The source of these benefits is not difficult to determine, for it centers in the Constitution of our country and in the American system of free enterprise, these having been so harmoniously coordinated that they have provided the people with both spiritual and economic power, such as the world has never before witnessed. Our form of government is a stupendous mastermind alliance made up of the harmonious relationship of all the people of the nation, functioning through 48 separate groups known as states. We are here considering the original pattern of our government, as it was provided by the Constitution, and the original relationship of harmony which existed between our government and our system of free enterprise, taking no account of the temporary disruption of that harmony, for the reason that it is only temporary. The central core of our American mastermind is easily discernible by breaking down our form of government and examining its component parts, all of which are under the direct control of a majority of the people. These parts are: 1. The executive branch of our government, maintained by a president. 2. The judiciary branch, maintained by the Supreme Court. 3. The legislative branch, maintained by the two houses of Congress. Our Constitution has been so wisely constructed that the power behind all three of these branches of government is held by the people. It is a power of which the people cannot be deprived except by their own neglect to use it. Our political power is expressed through our government. Our economic power is maintained and expressed through our system of free enterprise. And the sum total of the power of these two is always an exact ratio to the degree of harmony with which the two are coordinated. The power thus attained is the property of all the people. It is this power which has provided the people with the highest standard of living that civilization has yet evolved, and which has made our nation truly the richest and the freest and the most powerful nation of the world. We speak of this power as the American way of life. It was this way of life and our desire to maintain it which brought about the consolidation of our forces, both economic and spiritual, in a war that threatened the destruction of civilization as well as our way of life. The future of mankind may have been determined by the application of our American mastermind, for it is obvious that ours was the balance of power which turned the tide of war in favor of freedom for all mankind. Another illustration of the mastermind applied to industry may be found in the great American systems of transportation and communications. The men who manage our railroads and our airlines, our telephone and telegraph systems, have established a service which has never been equaled in any other country. Their efficiency and the resultant power consist entirely in their application of the mastermind principle or harmonious coordination of effort. Still another example of power attained through the mastermind principle may be found by observing the relationship of our military forces, our armies, our navy, and our air forces. Here, as elsewhere, the keystone to the arch of our power has been harmonious coordination of effort. The modern football team is an excellent example of power attained through harmony of effort. The great American system of chain store merchandising is still another example of economic power attained through the mastermind principle. And every successful industry is the result of application of the master mind. The American system of free enterprise in its entirety is a marvelous illustration of economic power produced by friendly, harmonious coordination of effort. Andrew Carnegie frankly admitted that his entire fortune was accumulated by the application of this principle, through which he brought together one of the greatest industrial organizations this nation has ever witnessed. And let it be remembered that his mastermind consisted of his entire organization of associate workers, from the humblest to the greatest. The key men of his mastermind, his managerial and supervisory staff, were recruited from the rank and file of his workers, and he understood the mastermind principle so thoroughly that he inspired every worker to make the most of his opportunity by aiming for a higher position. The man to whom he entrusted the organization of the philosophy of individual achievement had the benefit, through Mr. Carnegie's assistance, of the greatest mastermind alliance that ever collaborated in such an undertaking. It consisted of more than 500 leaders of industry of Mr. Carnegie's caliber, and the alliance continued over a period of 20 years, during which every man in the alliance provided the author of the philosophy with the full benefits of his entire industrial experience. This alliance provided the world with an astounding demonstration of the power which may be attained through the first three principles of the philosophy: 1. The habit of going the extra mile, 2. Definiteness of purpose, and 3. The mastermind. The definite purpose which inspired this work was that of providing all men with a workable philosophy based on the experiences of men who had demonstrated material success. It was an unselfish purpose because it was directed entirely for the benefit of other men. The men behind the purpose were already successful, but they recognized the advantages of sharing their knowledge, and they recognized also the Disadvantages of an economic system which benefits a few at the expense of many. And each man in that alliance demonstrated his understanding of the principle of going the extra mile, demonstrated it by contributing his time and experience, without money and without price, in order that the people of this nation might enjoy the benefits of a philosophy he knew had been the very foundation of the great American way of life, a foundation which had made ours the richest and the freest country of the world. In order that we may get a comprehensive understanding of the power and the benefits of this particular mastermind alliance, imagine what it might mean to you if you had the privilege of choosing 500 American leaders of industry who would consent to serve as your guides and your instructors for a period of 20 years, without cost or obligation. You would have, through the collaboration of so large a group of successful men, the full benefit of all the knowledge and experience which have grown out of the development of the American system of free enterprise. If you made the best use of this knowledge, your success would be inevitable. Of course, you cannot go to school to these men, for alas, most of them have passed on. But fortunately you may have the full benefit of the riches they laid up for you through the 17 principles of this philosophy, and the cost will consist in the time and thought you devote to putting it to use. The mastermind principle is not the exclusive property of the rich and the powerful, but it is the means of major importance by which men may attain desirable ends. The humblest person may benefit from this principle by forming a harmonious alliance with anyone of his choice. The most profound, and perhaps the most beneficial application of this principle that any man may make is the mastermind alliance in marriage, provided the motive behind that alliance is love. This sort of alliance not only coordinates the minds of man and wife, but it also blends the spiritual qualities of their souls. The benefits of such an alliance not only bring joy and happiness to man and wife, but they profoundly bless their children with sound character, and endow them with the fundamentals of a successful life. Let us turn back the pages of time for nearly half a century and have a look at a family whose mastermind relationship resulted in the building of a great industrial empire which now gives profitable employment to millions of men and women. The scene opens in the kitchen of their humble home. The husband set up a roughly constructed model of a gasoline engine. His wife is feeding gasoline into the engine, a drop at a time, with the aid of an eyedropper. The husband is manipulating the spark plug with which he hopes to ignite the gas. After weeks of tireless effort, tireless because it has been supported with love, the gas ignites and the flywheel of the crude engine begins to turn. There was no money behind this experiment, nothing behind it except the definiteness of purpose of two people who had formed a mastermind alliance for the fulfillment of that purpose. And there was no promise of immediate or direct monetary compensation behind the experiment. It had to be conducted by applying the principle of going the extra mile. The model was perfected and the first practical self-propelled vehicle ever built in America became a reality. Then the mastermind alliance was extended to include skilled mechanics and a few friends and acquaintances who contributed small amounts of working capital for the production of automobiles. The production has now reached fantastic proportions in comparison with the humble beginning, and the product of that two-unit mastermind now belts the entire earth. The man behind that production is one of the 500 from whose life experiences the philosophy of individual achievement was organized. And one hardly needs to be reminded that his name is Henry Ford. As the Ford production grew, the Ford mastermind was increased until it now includes a veritable army of mechanics, engineers, chemists, research men, financial experts, salesmen, and many other types of skilled labor, all of which are essential for so extensive an operation. Through his mastermind alliance, Mr. Ford has multiplied his own brain by many thousands. Without this alliance he could not carry on his vast industrial activities. It has endured for nearly half a century and will continue to endure, because the power it provides benefits all whom it affects. And here let us take notice that no mastermind alliance can endure unless it benefits all whom it affects. Look well to the purpose of your mastermind alliance before you begin it, you who see power through the cooperation of human endeavor. If you would have enduring power, be sure that it is applied to ends that benefit all who are affected by it. Power may be very dangerous, or it may serve to glorify the deeds of men, according to the way it is used. The mastermind is the way to great power, and like all other forms of power, it is subject to either a positive or a negative application by those who wield it. This is no mere statement of an obvious truism, for the records of the deeds of mankind all bear witness to its truth. Every great philosopher, from the days of Plato, Aristotle, and Socrates, on down to the days of William James and Ralph Waldo Emerson, also recognized it and called attention to it. Electricity will do the work of man provided he adapts himself to its nature, but also it may snuff out life if it is applied for that purpose. The imagination cannot conceive any good that may not be converted to destructive ends. Food is necessary for the maintenance of life, and it is good when properly used. But the wrong use of food, or too much food, will do as much harm as will the most potent poison. You now have an understandable interpretation of the greatest source of personal power known to men, the mastermind. The responsibility for its right use is yours. Use it as Henry Ford has done, and you will be blessed, as he has been, with the privilege of occupying great space in the world, space that can be estimated in both geography and in human relationships which are friendly and cooperative, for it is an accepted fact that Mr. Ford occupies more friendly space in the hearts of his fellow men than does any other industrialist. Mr. Ford's mastermind consists not only in his harmonious alliance with his associate workers and his technical staff, but it extends far beyond these, and includes the masses of the American people who have stood on the sidelines and watched him go by, people like you and me who recognize sound business and personal philosophy and respect its use wherever it is observed. We emphasize Mr. Ford's application of the mastermind because there is not to be found in the entire history of industrial America a finer example than his of individual achievement based on the American way of life. He has benefited almost everyone whose life has been touched by his influence, and it is very doubtful if he himself recognizes the full scope and measure of his influence on American life. Mastermind power under the control of Henry Ford is a blessing, and not a curse or a danger, as it might be if it were wielded by a man with less vision than he possesses. All of which is an observation of Mr. Ford, not to eulogize him, but to inspire all who seek any form of personal aggrandizement under the American way of life. In an analysis of Henry Ford and 50 other outstanding Americans, representing a wide variety of occupations, based upon the 17 principles of this philosophy, Mr. Ford led all the others by a wide margin. On the first 3 principles, going the extra mile, definiteness of purpose and the mastermind, he rated 100% plus. The plus indicated that he had made extraordinary use of these 3 principles, a fact that was established by close observation and analysis of his achievements and their influence for good throughout the world. And let us be reminded that the first member of his mastermind alliance, his wife, has occupied first place in this alliance all down through the years. Her influence upon him has been continuous and profound. So profound, in fact, that it might not be an exaggeration to say, had there been no Mrs. Ford, there would have been no great Ford industrial empire as the world of today knows it. Henry Ford has made mistakes. Some of them were the result of errors of judgment, others were the result of causes beyond his control. But those who know all the facts concerning his active life will tell you that he has made only 2 mistakes of major importance, and these were promptly mended by his own design and personal initiative, as soon as they were discovered. What a record! Duplicate it and you will have made indispensable contributions to the American way of life. Moreover, the compensation to you will be measured by compound interest on compound interest for every act and deed. Do not be afraid to aim high when you establish your goal. Remember that you live in a land of opportunities where no man is limited in the quality, the quantity, or the nature of the riches he may acquire, provided he is willing to give adequate value in return. Before you fix your goal in life, memorize the following lines and take to heart the lesson they teach. I bargained with life for a penny, and life would pay no more. However, I begged at evening, when I counted my scanty store. For life is a just employer. He gives you what you ask. But once you have set the wages, why, you must bear the task. I worked for a menial's hire. Only to learn, dismayed, that any wage I had asked of life, life would have willingly paid. Successful men do not bargain with life for poverty. They know that there is a power through which life may be made to pay off on their own terms. They know that this power is available to every man who comes into possession of the master key to riches. They know the nature of this power and its unlimited scope. They know it by a name of one word, the greatest word in the English language. This word is known to all men, but the secrets of its power are understood by few. Chapter 8. Andrew Carnegie's Analysis of the Master Mind Principle. The man who was commissioned by Andrew Carnegie to organize the philosophy of individual achievement asked him to describe the master mind principle so it might be appropriated and used by others, for the attainment of their definite major purpose. Mr. Carnegie, he requested, will you define the master mind principle, as it may be applied through the individual efforts of men and women who are seeking their places in the great American way of life? Describe, if you will, the various forms of application that may be made of this principle by the man of average ability, in his daily efforts to make the most of his opportunities in this country. And this is Mr. Carnegie's reply. The privileges which are available to the American people have back of them a source of great power. But privileges do not spring, mushroom-like, from nothing. They must be created and maintained by the application of power. The founders of our American form of government, through their foresight and wisdom, laid the foundation for all of our American form of liberty, freedom, and riches. But they only laid the foundation. The responsibility of embracing and using this foundation must be assumed by every person who claims any portion of this freedom and wealth. I will now describe some of the individual uses of the master mind principle, as it may be applied in the development of various human relationships which may contribute to the attainment of one's definite major purpose. But first I wish to emphasize the fact that the attainment of one's definite major purpose can be carried out only by a series of steps, that every thought one thinks, every transaction in which one engages in relationship with others, every plan one creates, every mistake one makes, has a vital bearing on his ability to attain his chosen goal. The mere choice of a definite major purpose, even though it be written out in clear language and fully fixed in one's mind, will not ensure the successful realization of that purpose. One's major purpose must be backed up and followed through by continuous effort, the most important part of which consists in the sort of relationship one maintains with others. With this truth well established in one's mind, it will not be difficult for one to understand how necessary it is to be careful in one's choice of associates, especially those with whom one maintains close personal contact and connection with his occupation. Here, then, are some of the sources of human relationship, which the man with a definite major purpose must cultivate, organize, and use in his progress toward the attainment of his chosen goal. Occupation, outside of the relationship of marriage, which is the most important of all master-mind relationships, there is no form of relationship as important as that which exists between a man and those with whom he works in his chosen occupation. Every man has a tendency to take on the mannerisms, beliefs, mental attitude, political and economic viewpoint, as well as other traits of the more outspoken of the men with whom he associates in his daily work. The major tragedy of this tendency lies in the fact that not always is the most outspoken among one's daily associates the soundest thinker, and very often he is a man with a grievance, who takes pleasure in airing the grievance among his fellow workers. Also, the most outspoken man often is an individual who has no definite major purpose of his own. Therefore he devotes much of his time endeavoring to belittle the man who has such a purpose. Men of sound character, who know exactly what they wish, usually have the wisdom to keep their own counsel, and seldom waste any of their time trying to discourage others. They are so busily engaged in promoting their own purpose that they have no time to waste with anyone or anything which does not contribute in one way or another to their benefit. Realizing that one may find in almost every group of associates some person whose influence and cooperation may be helpful, the man of keen discrimination, who has a definite major purpose he desires to attain, will prove his wisdom by forming friendships with those who can be, and who are willing to become, mutually beneficial to him. The others he will tactfully avoid. Naturally he will seek his closest alliances with men whom he recognizes possess traits of character, knowledge, and personality which may become helpful to him, and of course he will not overlook those holding positions of higher rank than his own, keeping his eye on the day when he may not only equal such men, but excel them, remembering meanwhile the words of Abraham Lincoln, who said, "I will study and prepare myself, and someday my chance will come." The man with a constructive definite major purpose will never envy his superiors, but he will study their methods and learn to acquire their knowledge. You may accept it as a sound prophecy that the man who spends his time finding fault with his superiors will never become a successful leader on his own account. The greatest soldiers are those who can take, and carry out, orders of their superiors in rank. Those who cannot or will not do this, never will become successful leaders in military operations. The same rule is true of any man in other walks of life. If he fails to emulate the man above him, in a spirit of harmony, he will never benefit greatly from his association with that man. No fewer than 100 men have risen from the ranks in my own organization, and have found themselves richer than they need be. They were not promoted because of bad dispositions or the habit of finding fault with those above or those below them, but they promoted themselves by appropriating and making practical use of the experience of everyone with whom they came in contact. The man with a definite major purpose will take careful inventory of every person with whom he comes in contact in his daily work, and he will look upon every such person as a possible source of useful knowledge or influence which he may borrow and use in his own promotion. If a man looks about him intelligently, he will discover that his place of daily labor is literally a schoolroom in which he may acquire the greatest of all educations, that which comes from observation and experience. How may one make the most of this sort of schooling, some will ask. The answer may be found by studying the 9 basic motives which move men to voluntary action. Men lend their experience, their knowledge, and they cooperate with other men, because they have been given a sufficient motive to cause them to desire as much. The man who relates himself to his daily associates in a friendly, cooperative way, with the right sort of mental attitude toward them, stands a better chance of learning from them than does the man who is belligerent, irritable, discourteous, or neglectful of the little amenities of courtesy which exist between all cultured people. The old saying that a man can catch more flies with honey than with salt might well be remembered by the man who wishes to learn of his daily associates who know more about many things than he does, and whose cooperation he needs and seeks. Educational, no man's education is ever finished. The man whose definite major purpose is of noteworthy proportions must remain always a student, and he must learn from every possible source, especially those sources from which he may acquire specialized knowledge and experience related to his major purpose. The public libraries are free. They offer a great array of organized knowledge on every subject. They carry, in every language, the total of man's knowledge on every subject. The successful man with a definite major purpose makes it his business and his responsibility to read books relating to that purpose, and thus acquire important knowledge which comes from the experiences of other men who have gone before him. It has been said that a man cannot consider himself even a kindergarten student of any subject until he has availed himself, as far as reasonably possible, of all the knowledge on that subject which has been preserved for him through the experience of others. A man's reading program should be as carefully planned as his daily diet, for that too is food, without which he cannot grow mentally. The man who spends all of his spare time reading the funny papers and the sex magazines is not headed toward any great achievement. The same may be said of the man who does not include in his daily program some form of reading that provides him with the knowledge which he may use in the attainment of his major purpose. Random reading may be pleasant, but it seldom is helpful in connection with one's occupation. Reading, however, is not the only source of education. By a careful choice among his daily associates in his occupation, one may ally himself with men from whom he can acquire a liberal education through ordinary conversation. Business and professional clubs offer an opportunity for one to form alliances of great educational benefit, provided the man chooses his clubs and his close associates in those clubs with a definite objective in mind. Through this sort of association many men have formed both business and social acquaintances of great value to them in carrying out the object of their major purpose. No man can go through life successfully without the habit of cultivating friends. The word contact, as it is commonly used in relationship to personal acquaintanceship, is an important word. If a man makes it a part of his daily practice to extend his list of personal contacts, he will find the habit of great benefit to him in ways that cannot be foretold while he is cultivating those acquaintances, but the time will come when they will be ready and willing to render aid to him if he has done a good job of selling himself. As I have stated, a man with a definite major purpose should form the habit of establishing contacts through every source possible, using care of course to choose those sources through which he is most likely to meet people who may be helpful to him. The church is among the more desirable sources through which one may meet and cultivate people, because it brings people together under circumstances which inspire the spirit of fellowship among men. Every man needs some source through which he can associate with his neighbors under circumstances that will enable him to exchange thoughts with them for the sake of mutual understanding and friendship, quite aside from all considerations of pecuniary gain. The man who shuts himself up in his own shell becomes a confirmed introvert, and soon becomes selfish and narrow in his views on life. Political alliances. It is both the duty and the privilege of an American citizen to interest himself in politics and thereby exercise his right to help place, through his ballot, worthy men and women in public office. The political party to which a man belongs is of much less importance than the question of his exercising his privilege of voting. If politics become smeared with dishonest practices, there is no one to blame but the people, who have it within their power to keep dishonest, unworthy, and inefficient people out of office. In addition to the privilege of voting and the duty it carries with it, one should not overlook the benefits which may be gained from an active interest in politics, through contacts and alliances with people who may become helpful in the attainment of one's definite major purpose. In many occupations, professions, and businesses, political influence becomes a definite and important factor in the promotion of one's interests. Business and professional men and women certainly should not neglect the possibility of promoting their interests through active political alliances. The alert individual, who understands the necessity of reaching out in every possible direction for friendly allies whom he can use in attaining his major purpose in life, will make the fullest use of his privilege of voting. But, the major reason why every American citizen should take an active interest in politics, and the one which I would emphasize above all others, is the fact that if the better type of citizen fails to exercise his right to vote, politics will disintegrate and become an evil that will destroy this nation. The founders of this nation pledged their lives and their fortunes to provide all the people with the privileges of liberty and freedom in the pursuit of their chosen purpose in life. And chief among these privileges is that of helping, by the ballot, to maintain the institution of government, which the founders of this nation established to protect those privileges. Everything that is worth having has a definite price. You desire personal freedom and individual liberty. Very well, you may protect this right by forming a mastermind alliance with other honest and patriotic men, and making it your business to elect honest men to public office. And it is no exaggeration to state that this may well be the most important mastermind alliance that any American citizen can make. Your forefathers ensured your personal liberty and freedom by their votes. You should do no less for your offspring and the generations that will follow them. Every honest American citizen has sufficient influence with his neighbors, and his daily associates in connection with his occupation, to enable him to influence at least 5 other people to exercise their right to vote. If he fails to exercise this influence, he may still remain an honest citizen, but he cannot truthfully call himself a patriotic citizen, for patriotism has a price consisting in the obligation to exercise it. Social alliances. Here is a fertile, almost unlimited, field for the cultivation of friendly contacts. It is particularly available to the married man whose wife understands the art of making friends through social activities. Such a wife can convert her home and her social activities into a priceless asset to her husband, if his occupation is one that requires him to extend his list of friends. Many professional men whose professional ethics forbid direct advertising or self-promotion, may make effective use of their social privileges, provided they have wives with a bent for social activities. A successful life insurance man sells more than $1 million a year of insurance, with the aid of his wife, who is a member of several business women's clubs. His wife's part is simple. She entertains her fellow club members in her home from time to time, along with their husbands. In this way her husband becomes acquainted with them under friendly circumstances. A lawyer's wife has been credited with helping him to build one of the most lucrative law practices in a Middle Western city, by the simple process of entertaining, through her social activities, the wives of wealthy business men. The possibilities in this direction are endless. One of the major advantages of friendly alliances with people in a variety of walks of life consists in the opportunity such contacts provide for round-table discussions which lead to the accumulation of knowledge one may use in the attainment of his definite major purpose. If one's acquaintances are sufficiently numerous and varied, they may become a valuable source of information on a wide range of subjects, thus leading to a form of intellectual intercourse which is essential for the development of flexibility and versatility required in many callings. When a group of men get together and enter into a round table discussion on any subject, this sort of spontaneous expression and interchange of thought enriches the minds of all who participate. Every man needs to reinforce his own ideas and plans with new food for thought, which he can acquire only through frank and sincere discussions with people whose experience and education differ from his own. The writer who becomes a top-notcher and remains in that exalted position must add continuously to his own stock of knowledge by appropriating the thoughts and ideas of others, through personal contacts, and by reading. Any mind that remains brilliant, alert, receptive and flexible must be fed continuously from the storehouse of other minds. If this renewal is neglected, the mind will atrophy, the same as will an arm that is taken out of use. This is in accordance with nature's laws. Study nature's plan and you will discover that every living thing, from the smallest insect to the complicated machinery of a human being, grows and remains healthy only by constant use. Round-table discussions not only add to one's store of useful knowledge, but they develop and expand the power of the mind. The person who stops studying the day he finishes his formal schooling will never become an educated person, no matter how much knowledge he may acquire while he is going to school. Life itself is a great school, and everything that inspires thought is a teacher. The wise man knows this. Moreover, he makes it a part of his daily routine to contact other minds, with the object of developing his own mind through the exchange of thoughts. We see, therefore, that the master-mind principle has an unlimited scope of practical use. It is the medium by which the individual may supplement the power of his own mind with the knowledge, experience, and mental attitude of other minds. As one man so aptly expressed this idea, if I give you $1 of my dollars in return for one of yours, each of us will have no more than he started with. But, if I give you a thought in return for one of your thoughts, each of us will have gained 100% dividend on his investment of time. No form of human relationship is as profitable as that through which men exchange useful thoughts, and it may be surprising but true that one may acquire from the mind of the humblest person ideas of the first magnitude of importance. Let me illustrate what I mean, through the story of a preacher who picked from the mind of the colored janitor of his church an idea that led to the attainment of his definite major purpose. The preacher's name was Russell Conwell, and his major purpose was the founding of a college he had long desired to establish. All he needed was the necessary money, a tidy sum of something more than $1 million. One day the Reverend Russell Conwell stopped to chat with the colored man who was busily at work cutting the church lawn. The colored man was an ex-slave, one of those good-natured old darkies with a philosophical trend of mind. As they stood there talking in light conversation, Reverend Conwell casually remarked that the grass adjoining the churchyard was much greener and better kept than their own lawn, intending his remark as a mild reprimand to the old caretaker. With a broad grin on his face, the old colored man replied, "Yes, Sue, dat grass show do look greener, but dat am because we also used to de grass on dis side o' the fence." Now there was nothing brilliant about that remark, for it was not intended to be anything more than the colored man's alibi for laziness, but it planted in the fertile mind of Russell Conwell the seed of an idea, just a bare, tiny seed of thought, mind you, which led to the solution of his major problem. From that humble remark an idea was born for a lecture which the preacher composed and delivered more than 4,000 times. He called it Acres of Diamonds. The central idea of the lecture was this: a man need not seek his opportunity in the distance, but he can find it right where he stands, by recognizing the fact that the grass on the other side of the fence is no greener than that where he stands. The lecture yielded an income during the life of Russell Conwell of more than $6 million. It was published in book form and became a bestseller throughout the nation for many years thereafter, and it may be obtained to this day. The money was used to found and maintain the Temple University of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, one of the great educational institutions of the country. The idea around which that lecture was organized did more than found a university. It enriched the minds of millions of people by influencing them to look for opportunity right where they were. The philosophy of the lecture is as sound today as it was when it first came from the mind of an illiterate Negro. Remember this: every active brain is a potential source of inspiration, from which one may procure an idea, or the mere seed of an idea, of priceless value in the solution of his personal problems, or the attainment of his major purpose in life. Sometimes great ideas spring from humble minds, but generally they come from the minds of those closest to the individual, where the master-mind relationship has been deliberately established and maintained. The most profitable idea of my own career came one afternoon when Charlie Schwab and I were walking across a golf course. As we finished our shots on the 13th hole, Charlie looked up with a sheepish grin on his face, and said, "I'm 3 strokes up on you at this hole, Chief, but I have just thought of an idea that should give you a lot of free time to play golf." Curiosity prompted me to inquire as to the nature of the idea. He gave it to me, in one brief sentence, each word of which was worth, roughly speaking, $1 million. "Consolidate all your steel plants," said he, "into one big corporation and sell it out to Wall Street bankers." Nothing more was said about the matter during the game, but that evening I began to turn the suggestion over in my mind and think about it. Before I went to sleep that night I had converted the seed of his idea into a definite major purpose. The following week I sent Charlie Schwab to New York City to deliver a speech before a group of Wall Street bankers, among them J. Pierpont Morgan. The sum and substance of the speech was a plan for the organization of the United States Steel Corporation, through which I consolidated all my steel plants and retired from active business, with more money than anyone needs. Now let me emphasize one point: Charlie Schwab's idea might never have been born, and I never would have received the benefit of it if I had not made it my business to encourage in my associates the creation of new ideas. This encouragement was provided through a close and continuous mastermind alliance with the members of my business organization, among whom was Charlie Schwab. Contact, let me repeat, is an important word. It is much more important if we add to it the word harmonious. Through harmonious relationships with the minds of other men, an individual may have the full use of his capacity to create ideas. The man who overlooks this great fact thereby condemns himself eternally to penury and want. No man is smart enough to project his influence very far into the world without the friendly cooperation of other men. Drive this thought home in every way you can, for it is sufficient unto itself to open the door to success in the higher brackets of individual achievement. Too many people look for success in the distance, far from where they are, and altogether too often they search for it through complicated plans, based upon a belief in luck or miracles which they hope may favor them. As Russell Conwell so effectively stated the matter in his lecture, some people seem to think the grass is greener on the other side of the fence from where they stand, and they pass up the acres of diamonds in the form of ideas and opportunities which are available to them through the minds of their daily associates. I found my acres of diamonds right where I stood, while looking into the glow of a hot steel blast furnace. I remember well the first day I began to sell myself the idea of becoming a leader in the great steel industry, instead of remaining a helper in another man's acres of diamonds. At first the thought was not very definite. It was a wish more than it was a definite purpose. But I began to bring it back into my mind and to encourage it to take possession of me, until there came the day when the idea began to drive me instead of my having to drive it. That day I began with earnestness to work my own acres of diamonds, and I was surprised to learn how quickly a definite major purpose may find a way to translate itself into its physical equivalent. The main thing of importance is to know what one wants. The next thing of importance is to begin digging for diamonds right where one is, using whatever tools may be at hand, even if they be only the tools of thought. In proportion to the faithful use a man makes of the tools at hand, other and better tools will be placed in his hands when he is ready for them. The man who understands the mastermind principle and makes use of it will find the necessary tools much more quickly than will the fellow who knows nothing of this principle. Every mind needs friendly contact with other minds, for the food of expansion and growth. The discriminating person who has a definite major purpose in life chooses, with the greatest of care, the types of minds with whom he associates most intimately, because he recognizes that he will take on a definite portion of the personality of every person with whom he thus associates. I wouldn't give much for a man who does not make it his business to seek the company of people who know more than he. A man rises to the level of his superiors or falls to the level of his inferiors, according to the class he emulates through his choice of associates. Lastly, there is one other thought which every man who works for wages or a salary should recognize and respect. It lies in the fact that his job is, and should be, a schooling for a higher station in life, for which he is being paid in two important ways: first, by the wages he receives directly, and secondly, by the experience he gains from his work. And it frequently becomes true that a man's greatest pay consists not in his pay envelope, but in the experience he gains from his work. This overplus pay a man may gain from his experience depends largely for its value upon the mental attitude in which he relates himself to his associate workers, both those above him and those beneath him. If his attitude is positive and cooperative, and he follows the habit of going the extra mile, his advancement will be both sure and rapid. Thus we see that the man who gets ahead not only makes practical use of the principle of the mastermind, but he also applies the principle of going the extra mile, and the principle of definiteness of purpose, the three principles which are inseparably associated with successful men in all walks of life. Marriage, this is by far the most important alliance any man ever experiences during his entire life. It is important financially, physically, mentally, and spiritually, for it is a relationship bound together by all of these. The home is the place where most mastermind alliances should begin. And the man who has chosen his mate wisely will, if he is wise in an economic sense, make his wife the first member of his personal master-mind group. The home alliance should include not only man and wife, but it should include other members of the family if they live in the same household, particularly children. The mastermind principle brings into action the spiritual forces of those who are thus allied for a definite purpose, and spiritual power, while it may seem intangible, is nevertheless the greatest of all powers. The married man who is on the right terms with his wife, terms of complete harmony, understanding, sympathy, and singleness of purpose in which each is interested, has a priceless asset in this relationship which may lift him to great heights of personal achievement. Inharmony between a man and his wife is unpardonable, no matter what may be the cause. It is unpardonable because it may destroy a man's chances of success, even though he has every attribute necessary for success. And may I here interpolate a suggestion for the benefit of the wives of men? The suggestion may, if it is heeded and followed, make just the difference between a lifetime of poverty and misery and a lifetime of opulence and plenty. The wife has more influence over her husband than has any other person. That is, she has this superior influence if she has made the most of her relationship to her husband. He chose her in marriage in preference to all other women of his acquaintance, which means that she has his love and his confidence. Love heads the list of the 9 basic motives of life which inspire all voluntary actions of people. Through the emotion of love the wife may send her husband to his daily labor in a spirit which knows no such reality as failure. But remember that nagging, jealousy, fault-finding and indifference do not feed the emotion of love. They kill it. If a wife is wise, she will arrange with her husband for a regular master-mind hour each day, a period during which they will pool all of their mutual interests and discuss them in detail, in a spirit of love and understanding. The periods most suited for this mastermind talk are those following the morning meal and just before retiring at night. And every meal hour should be a period of friendly intercourse between the wife and her husband. They should not be converted into periods of inquisition and fault-finding, but rather should be converted into periods of family worship, during which there will be good cheer, and the discussion of pleasant subjects of mutual interest to the husband and wife. More family relationships are wrecked at the family meal hour than at any other time, for this is the hour which many families devote to settling their family differences of opinion, or to disciplining the children. It has been said that a man's stomach is the way to his heart. Therefore, the meal hour provides an excellent opportunity for a wife to reach her husband's heart with any idea she desires to plant there. But the approach must be based on love and affection, not upon negative habits of discipline and fault-finding. The wife can coax her husband to do many things. The wife should take a keen interest in her husband's occupation. She should become familiar with every feature of it, and never overlook an opportunity to express a keen interest in everything that concerns the source from which he earns his livelihood. And above all, she should not be one of those wives who say to their husbands, by inference if not by words, "You bring home the money and I will spend it, but don't bother me with the details as to how you earn it, for I am not interested in that." If a wife takes that attitude, the time will come when her husband will not be interested as to how much money he brings home, and the time may come when he will not bring it all home. I think that wives who are wise will understand just what I mean. When a woman marries, she becomes the majority stockholder in the firm. If she relates herself to her husband by a true application of the master-mind principle, she will continue, as long as the marriage exists, to vote that stock as she pleases. The wife who is wise will manage the firm's business by a carefully prepared budget, taking care not to spend more than the income will allow. Many marriages go on the rocks because the firm runs out of money. And it is no mere axiom to say that when poverty knocks on the front door, love takes to its heels and runs out through the back door. Love, like a beautiful picture, requires the embellishment of an appropriate frame and proper lighting. It requires cultivation and food, just as does the physical body. Love does not thrive on indifference, nagging, fault-finding or domineering by either party. Love thrives best where a man and his wife feed it through singleness of purpose. The wife who remembers this may remain forever the most influential person in the life of her husband. The wife who forgets it may see the time when her husband begins to look around for an opportunity to trade her in on a newer model, to use the phraseology of the automobile industry. The husband has the responsibility of earning the living, but the wife may have the responsibility of softening the shocks and the resistances which he will meet in connection with his occupation or responsibility, which the wife can discharge by planning a pleasant home life, through whatever social activities may be fitting to her husband's calling. The wife should see to it that the home is the one place where her husband may lay aside his business or occupational cares and enjoy the ecstasies which only the love and affection and understanding of a wife can provide. The wife who follows this policy will be as wise as the sages, and richer in the ways that count most than most queens. I would also caution a wife against allowing her maternal instinct to supplant her love for her husband, by transferring all of her love and attention to her children. This mistake has wrecked many homes, and it might well wreck any home if the wife neglects to guard against the error so many wives make of switching their love from their husbands to their children. A woman's love, if it be the right kind of love, is sufficient in abundance to serve both the children and her husband, and it is a happy wife who sees to it that her love is sufficient to serve her husband and the children generously, without unfair preference in favor of either. Where love abounds as the basis of the family mastermind relationship, the family finances will not be likely to give cause for disturbance, for love has a way of surmounting all obstacles, meeting all problems and overcoming all difficulties. Family problems may arise, and they do in every family, but love should be the master of them. Keep the light of love shining brightly and Everything else will shape itself to the pattern of your most lofty desires. I know this counsel is sound as I have followed it in my own family relationship, and I can truthfully say that it has been responsible for whatever material success I have achieved. Author's note: Mr. Carnegie's frank admission becomes impressive when one considers the fact that he accumulated a fortune of more than $500 million. Mr. Carnegie made a huge fortune, but those who knew of his relationship with his wife know that Mrs. Carnegie made him. Taking up the subject of family mastermind relationships where Andrew Carnegie left it, this seems an appropriate place to call attention to the fact that his experience is by no means an isolated one. It is no secret among the personal friends of Henry Ford and his wife that the mastermind relationship between them has been an important factor in the building of the great Ford industrial empire. The public hears very little of Mrs. Ford, but the fact remains that she has been a powerful influence in Mr. Ford's life, from the early days of their marriage up to the present. The late Thomas A. Edison freely admitted that Mrs. Edison was the major source of his inspiration. They held their mastermind meetings daily, usually at the close of Mr. Edison's day's work, and nothing was permitted to interfere with these meetings. Mrs. Edison saw to that, for she recognized the value of her keen interest in all of Mr. Edison's experimental work. Mr. Edison often worked late into the night, but his homecoming found his wife awaiting him in keen anticipation of hearing him tell of his successes and failures during the day. She was familiar with every experiment he conducted and took an interest in them. She served as a sort of sounding board for Mr. Edison, through whom he had the privilege of looking at his work from the sidelines, and it has been said that she often supplied the missing link to many of his unsolved problems. It is believed by many that Mrs. Edison was responsible for the master-mind alliance that was maintained between Mr. Edison, Henry Ford, Harvey Firestone and John Burroughs, the naturalist, of which the public heard often through the newspaper accounts of their meetings once a year. If the mastermind relationship was considered to be of value to men of this caliber, surely it should be regarded as such by men who are struggling to find their places in the world. The princes of love and romance have played an important role in the lives of all truly great leaders. The story of Robert and Elizabeth Browning is replete with evidence that these unseen entities, which they recognized and respected, were largely responsible for the inspirational literary works of these great poets. John Wanamaker, the Philadelphia merchant prince, as he was known to thousands of people, gave credit to his wife for his rise from poverty to fame and fortune. Mastermind meetings were a part of their daily routine, every evening being set aside in part for these meetings, usually just before they retired. Robert G. Letourneau gives generous credit to his wife for his astounding achievements in industry, and it has been said that Mrs. Letourneau knows as much about the production of earth-moving equipment as does her famous husband, who has achieved such outstanding success in this field. She is a member of his board of directors, takes an active interest in the management of his huge industrial enterprises, and assumes the responsibility for his comfort in his home life. History attributes the rise to military power of Napoleon Bonaparte to the inspirational influence of his first wife, Josephine. Napoleon's military successes began to wane when he allowed his ambition for power to cause him to put Josephine aside, and his defeat and banishment to the lonely island of St. Helena was not far ahead of this act. It may not be amiss to mention the fact that many a modern times business Napoleon has met with the same kind of defeat for the same reason. Men often maintain their mastermind relationships with their wives until they attain power, fame, and fortune, then trade them in for newer models, as Andrew Carnegie expressed it. Charles M. Schwab's story was different. He too gained fame and fortune through his mastermind alliance with Andrew Carnegie, aided by a similar relationship with his wife, who was an invalid during the major portion of their married life. He did not put her away on that account, but stood loyally by her until her death, because he believed that loyalty is the first requirement of sound character. While we are on the subject of loyalty, it may not be out of place to suggest that the lack of loyalty among men in business mastermind relationships is among the more frequent causes of business failure. As long As associates in business maintain the spirit of loyalty between one another, they generally find a way to bridge their defeats and overcome their handicaps. It has been said that the first trait of character which Andrew Carnegie looked for in the young men whom he raised from the ranks of his workers to highly paid executive positions, was the trait of loyalty. He often said that if a man did not have inherently the quality of loyalty, he did not have the proper foundation for a sound character in other directions. His methods of testing men for loyalty were both ingenious and multiple in scope. The testings took place before promotions were made and afterward, until such time as there no longer remained any doubt as to a man's loyalty. And it is a tribute to the deep understanding of men, which Mr. Carnegie possessed, that he made but few mistakes in judging men of loyalty. Do not reveal the purpose of your mastermind alliance to those outside of the alliance, and make sure that the members of your alliance refrain from so doing, because the idle, the scoffers and the envious stand on the sidelines of life, looking for an opportunity to sow the seeds of discouragement in the minds of those who are excelling them. Avoid this pitfall by keeping your plans to yourself, except insofar as they may be revealed by your actions and achievements. Do not go into your mastermind meetings with your mind filled with a negative mental attitude. Remember, if you are the leader of your mastermind group, it is your responsibility to keep every member of the alliance aroused to a high degree of interest and enthusiasm. You cannot do this when you are negative. Moreover, men will not follow with enthusiasm the man who shows a tendency toward doubt, indecision, or lack of faith in the object of his definite major purpose. Keep your mastermind allies keyed up to a high degree of enthusiasm by keeping yourself keyed up in the same manner. Do not neglect to see that each member of your mastermind alliance receives adequate compensation, in one form or another, in proportion to the contributions each man makes to your success. Remember that no one ever does anything with enthusiasm unless he benefits thereby. Familiarize yourself with the 9 basic motives which inspire all voluntary action, and see that each of your mastermind allies is properly motivated to give you his loyalty, enthusiasm, and complete confidence. If you are related to your mastermind allies by the motive of desire for financial gain, be sure that you give more than you receive, by adopting and following the principle of going the extra mile. Do this voluntarily, before you are requested to do so, if you wish to make the most of the habit. Do not place competitors in your mastermind alliance, but follow the Rotary Club policy of surrounding yourself with men who have no reason to feel antagonistic toward each other, men who are not in competition with one another. Do not try to dominate your mastermind group by force, fear or coercion, but hold your leadership by diplomacy based upon a definite motive for loyalty and cooperation. The day of leadership by force is gone. Do not try to revive it, for it has no place in civilized life. Do not fail to take every step necessary to create the spirit of fellowship among your mastermind allies, for friendly teamwork will give you power attainable in no other way. The most powerful mastermind alliance in the history of mankind was formed by the United Nations during World War II. Its leaders announced to the whole world that their definite major purpose was based upon the determination to establish human liberty and freedom for all the peoples of the world, both the victors and the vanquished alike. That pronouncement was worth 1,000 victories on the fields of battle, for it had the effect of establishing confidence in the minds of people who were affected by the outcome of that war. Without confidence there can be no mastermind relationship, either in the field of military operations or elsewhere. Confidence is the basis of all harmonious relationships. Remember this when you organize your mastermind alliance, if you wish that alliance to endure and to serve your interests effectively. I have now revealed to you the working principle of the greatest of all the sources of personal power among men, the mastermind. By the combination of the first 4 principles of this philosophy, the habit of going the extra mile, definiteness of purpose, the mastermind, and the one which follows, one may acquire a clue as to the secret of the power which is available through the master key to riches, that mysterious key which opens the final gate to the estate of Happy Valley. Therefore, it is not out of place for me to warn you to approach the analysis of our next chapter in a state of expectancy, for it may well mark the most important turning point of your life. I shall now reveal to you the true approach to a full understanding of a power which has defied analysis by the entire world of science. Moreover, I